They call me Squirrel.
What's going on, Squirrel Squad? It's your boy. Ooh, the Squirrel. It's good to be back. Just so crazy lately. It's been nuts, but good to be back tonight. This is a little video called The Unknown Warrior. The Barbaric Brit commented on one of my videos and said, you should check out a video about the unknown British soldier. And then, so I told the Barbaric Brit that I would try to look that up. And the Barbaric Brit said, I think you'll find it interesting. I'm pretty sure that's what inspired your own Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and other tombs similar to that in other countries. So, pretty cool. Now I want to watch this. I'm very familiar with the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and I've been there. I've seen so many different videos. It's unbelievable how the dedication to continue the guarding the tomb. It's crazy. So let's get into this. Let's learn a little bit. I'm going to learn here, I think, and. It's good. It's good to do a little educational piece from time to time. I don't do enough of those, so let's get into it. Here we go. You guys ready? I'm ready. I think I'm ready. I'm never ready, actually. I lie all the time, but here we go.
On November the 7th, 1920, in the strictest secrecy, 4 unidentified British bodies were exhumed from temporary battlefield cemeteries at Ypres, Arras, the Aisne and the Somme, and placed in 4 plain coffins, each covered with a Union flag. None of the soldiers who did the digging were told why. The bodies were taken by field ambulance to the general headquarters at Saint-Paul-sur-Tenoise, and once there the coffins were draped with the Union flag. Sentries were posted, and Brigadier General Wyatt closed his eyes and, moving between the coffins, selected one at random. The other 3 were reburied. A French honour guard was selected from the 8th Infantry, who had recently been awarded the Légion d'honneur en masse, and they stood vigil by the coffin of the chosen soldier overnight. On the morning of the 8th of November, a specially designed oaken coffin made from trees cut from the grounds of Hampton Court Palace arrived, and the unknown soldier was placed inside.
It doesn't sound like it's an unknown soldier. He told us it was a French soldier and he even won a medal. I want to continue. Maybe they just knew because there was a medal on the body. Maybe that's it.
Casket was banded with iron, and a medieval crusader's sword, chosen personally by King George V from the royal collection, was fixed on top and surmounted by an iron shield bearing the inscription, "A British warrior who fell in the Great War 1914 to 1918 for king and country." The casket was then placed onto a French military wagon drawn by 6 black horses. Then the mile-long procession, led by 1,000 local schoolchildren and escorted by a division of French troops, made its way down to the harbour, to the sound of the Boulogne church bells, the massed trumpets of the French cavalry, and the bugles of the French infantry. There he was saluted by Marshal Foch and carefully carried up the gangway of the destroyer HMS Verdun, bound for Dover, and piped aboard to an admiral's call. The coffin stood on the deck, covered in wreaths, surrounded by the French honour guard. HMS Verdun slipped anchor just before noon, and escorted by 6 battleships, set sail for England. As they passed Dover Castle, the flotilla received a 19-gun Field Marshal's salute. Upon arrival at the docks, the body was placed on a special train in van number 132, which had previously carried the bodies of the beloved nurse Edith Cavell, who had helped 200 Allied prisoners escape from German-occupied Belgium and who was executed by a German firing squad, and Charles Fryatt, a civilian merchant navy captain who was also executed for attempting to ram a U-boat despite being a civilian non-combatant.
Wow.
The train remained at Victoria Station in London overnight, and a plaque still marks the spot between platforms 8 and 9 where every year a small remembrance service takes place.
So now you got two famous platforms out there, the one between 8 and 9, and then of course 9 3/4, we all know about that.
On the morning of the 11th of November 1920, the casket was placed onto a gun carriage of the Royal Horse Artillery and drawn by 6 horses through immense and silent crowds. As the cortege set off, a further Field Marshal salute was fired in Hyde Park. The route followed was past Hyde Park Corner, the Mall, and into Whitehall, where the cenotaph, a symbolic empty tomb, was unveiled by King Emperor George V. The cortege was then followed by the King, the royal family, and ministers of state to Westminster Abbey, where the casket was borne into the west nave of the Abbey, flanked by a guard of honour of 100 recipients of the Victoria Cross, the highest bravery award that can be bestowed on a member of the British Armed Forces.
I like that strong wooden, big ironclad lockbox look. I'd rather be buried in something like that than some pretty casket. Let's be honest, I'm probably going to get burned, but either way.
The idea of the unknown soldier came to an army chaplain, David Railton, who had served on the front line during the Great War. He had seen a grave marked by a rough cross while serving on the Western Front, which bore the pencil-written legend, "An unknown British soldier." In his own words, "How that grave caused me to think. But who was he? And who were they, his folk?" There was no answer to those questions, nor has there ever been yet. So I thought, and wrestled in thought. What can I do to ease the pain of the father, mother, brother, sister, sweetheart, wife and friend? Quietly and gradually there came out of the mist of thought this answer, clear and strong. Let this body, this symbol of him, be carried reverently over the sea to his native land. And I was happy for a few minutes. He suggested the nation should have a symbolic funeral and burial of an unknown warrior, proposing that the grave should include a national monument. The idea received the support of the Dean of Westminster, Prime Minister David Lloyd George, and later from King George V, responding to a wave of public support. The coffin was then interred in the far western end of the nave of Westminster Abbey, only a few feet from the entrance, in soil bought from each of the main battlefields and covered with a silk pall.
How cool is that they brought soil from the battlefield? That's really, really cool. Wow.
Servicemen from the armed forces stood guard as tens of thousands of mourners filed silently past. The guests of honour were a group of about 100 women. They had been chosen because they had each lost their husband and all their sons in the war. The grave was then capped with a black Belgian marble stone, and is the only tombstone in the Abbey upon which it is forbidden to walk. It features an inscription engraved on brass from ammunition that had been melted down. Beneath this stone rests the body of a British warrior, unknown by name or rank, brought from France to lie among the most illustrious of the land, and buried here on Armistice Day, 11th of November 1920, in the presence of His Majesty King George V, his ministers of state, the chiefs of his forces, and a vast concourse of the nation. Thus are commemorated the many multitudes who, during the Great War of 1914 to 1918, gave the most that man can give, life itself, for God, for king and country, for loved ones, home and empire, for the sacred cause of justice and the freedom of the world. They buried him among the kings, because he has done good towards God and towards his house.
Absolutely. That's awesome. The poppies. Pretty cool to see this, to see all the people coming to see it, you know? I like how they're coming out the window. Pretty neat. Wow. So awesome.
So it is at this time we remember those who died during the Great War and every conflict since by wearing a red poppy. The Remembrance poppy was inspired by the Canadian physician Lieutenant Colonel John McCree in Flanders Field, with the immortal lines, "In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row." So at 11 a.m. on the 11th of November each year, we remember with humility the great and ultimate sacrifices that were made, not just in this war, but in every war and conflict where our service personnel have fought, to ensure the liberty and freedoms we now take for granted.
So cool.
At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
That was a very, very, very awesome learning piece for me. Yeah, it's kind of joking a bit at the beginning, like because they were talking about this guy won the award, whatever, but they truly did. As I went on, I learned. Obviously I learned, and they truly did pick someone who they weren't sure who it was, and the way that this was, this whole idea was thought of and hatched and then executed was pretty amazing. And I think every country should have a tomb of an unknown soldier like this for the very reason that they state in this video, to give a little bit of closure to some folks. I wonder how each country treats it, if they all treat it the same, where they guard it and do all that like we do here, and it seems like, it's in a guarded place there. Crazy. Great story. Beautiful story. So I appreciate Barbaric Brit. I appreciate you letting me, give me the insight on this one to go check it out. Also wanted to point out that, the narrator, who, by the way, has an amazing narration voice. This guy, he really nailed his calling in life. He really does. Has a great voice. He was talking about Flanders Fields, and over here on Memorial Day every year, we do the Memorial Day Parade. Every town, I think, almost does a Memorial Day Parade. And it's our Remembrance Day. And so what we do is, in my town, it's a tiny little dinky town, parade starts out on Central Street, which is the main street that comes down to a town. It comes down, and then it turns at the Common, and it goes down to Route 9, which is the state road that comes through town. And then on Route 9, it goes down about, I think like a mile down the road to the cemetery. And then everybody, the whole parade files into the roads of the cemetery, and everybody comes up near the war monuments. We have like an area with the different war monuments. And then every year they have a competition at the local elementary school. And they pick, I think it's 4 kids. Yeah, I think it's 4 kids. 2 kids for each location, because they do it at the cemetery, and then they march back up to the Common, and they stop at the Common, and they do the kind of a similar ceremony, almost the same exact ceremony. And then it's over, and then they usually do like cider and donuts and stuff on the Common. But so they pick 4 kids. 2 of them have to memorize the Gettysburg Address, and then 2 have to memorize Flanders Fields. And at each location, 1 kid will tell the Flanders Fields poem, and the other kid will tell the Gettysburg Address. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, that was a really cool piece. I think you're right there, Barbaric Brit. I believe that the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in all the different countries probably does come from this. I think you were right on that. And it's a very, very interesting story. So thank you for introducing me to that and mentioning it to me. Anyone who's ever suggested this in the past, if anyone has and I missed it, I apologize. But I know some people did send over some Remembrance Day stuff, and I unfortunately can't remember my own name some of these days lately. I've been so busy. I'm glad I got to do this. I know McT had sent some stuff over, and so did Johan, and I just, by the time I got to catching up on messages, it had already passed, because I just was so far behind, unfortunately. So, but glad I got to do this today. Glad I got to spend a little time with you folks. I hope you guys are all doing great. I'll catch up with you real soon, all right? You be good and take care of yourselves. Squirrel out.